Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Lapman. I am Joseph Lapman. Exciting show today. Can't wait for the show today. Got some stuff I'm really excited to get into. So before that, though, if you haven't seen my show from the other day, please go check that out. I talk about how to shift your emotions in the moment of in a high state of fear, of anxiety. Very important episode for anxiety sufferer out there, people going through it that are looking to move on with their life and learn some tools and things that'll really help change your life forever, really help change mine forever. So go check that out that episode 148 after this. I'll link it. It'll be in the outro. So go click on it after this if you wouldn't mind. Go check that out. But today's episode, on the back half of the show, I'm going to get into some Kevin Stefanski and some Cleveland Browns talk. Kevin Stefanski was on Deshaun Watson's podcast on Lockerverse live yesterday out there at Lefty's Cheesesteaks, where Deshaun opened up the restaurant out there in Cleveland Heights. It was a great opening yesterday. It's an awesome event. So I'll get into that. Something Kevin Stefanski said in that interview that really stood out to me. But most importantly, why we're here today, why I do this channel, some anxiety support time. And so let's get into it. 3 cold, hard truths for an anxiety sufferer. Let me turn this down a little bit. Okay. So 3 cold, hard truths for an anxiety sufferer. And I thought about this today. I was wondering, I knew I was going to do a show today. I had a feeling when I woke up. Today was a good day to do a show, especially look outside and see the weather. But, I was kind of focused on what I was going to talk about, and I keep seeing this reoccur in my mind more and more. The more I see this thought of the show I have today. Not about 3 cold hard truths, but some of the 3 truths I'm going to share today that have helped change my life, but also I think people out there suffering with anxiety and people in general, I think we all need to be reminded of. And, I see this a lot on social media. There's all these influencers nowadays, and there's a lot of these people online that put their anxiety online. But it's almost like in a way where I see a lot of people, they share their anxiety online, but it's almost like they're doing it just for attention, or they're doing it they're trying to seek something out of it for their own benefit. It's not really about helping other people, or I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I think there's a lot of people out there nowadays who are very kind of in the victimhood mentality. And it's funny, I actually saw this video from a gentleman who I've been friends with online for a while, Aaron Cartwright, who also does anxiety. He does a lot of mental health, anxiety stuff online. Aaron's a really good guy. He put this video out on his Facebook the other day, and I saw it again today, and I was like, perfect timing, because he really gets into this, how a lot of people with anxiety, this was me for a while. We wear our past, we become victims, right? And a lot of times we start to act out in that victimhood. Our identities are our anxiety and our past. And all this does is just keep you in a state of fear, in a state of anxiety. But I think a lot of it has to do with, rejection, possibly. Something that's our letdown, some type of traumatic thing in your life. And trauma doesn't be always often what we think it is, something like traumatic, something big. Trauma could be a lot of things for many people. It could be something in their life that just really made them feel a certain type of way. It really shifted their life emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically and spiritually. And this happens all the time, especially nowadays with the world we live in. But I just see a lot of these people nowadays online. There's just so many so-called influencers, and just people on Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff, just trying to. It's almost like it's really sick. It's almost like they're crying out for help, or they're crying out for something. And to me, I think a lot of it is it's just a victimhood mentality, but also I think a lot of it too is just there's something lacking there. There's something that, like I said, there's something they're seeking. There's something that caused them to want to do this, but also, and this is called the real, the name of my show. I think a lot of people too are not real. I think a lot of we see nowadays too is just a gimmick. To be honest with you, I think a lot of these people are actors. I think a lot of these people are just making up some of this stuff just to seek attention. It's easy money because it puts money in their pocket. Not they're making a living off it, but a lot of them are just it's the cool thing to do. It gets views, it gets clicks, it gets them attention, it makes them feel like they're some celebrity or wherever they want to be. And that's just the truth. But and that's not one of my three either, but that is the truth. But again, going back to my man Aaron. So Aaron, the other day, I saw this. Let me put it on the screen here. This is Aaron Cartwright. Again, he does mental health as well, and a lot of other great. He's a really good life coach, great guy, shares a lot of great things. Here's what Aaron had to say about the victimhood mentality that I think really makes a great point here.
Most people think healing is finding what's wrong with them and then blaming someone else, and that's it. So many people think this deep down. What's wrong with me? They go to a psychologist, they find out what's wrong. The psychologist, not always, but a lot of the times, will validate their story, and then what happens is the person in the office, psychologist's office, starts to reinforce the story that their mum or their dad or their brother or their uncle or whatever is the bad guy. And that might be true, right? That may be true. I'm not taking this away. In fact, it's more true than not in many cases. But that's not healing. Healing is making whole. Healing is being healthy with whatever's happened. And you need to move through that. It's important to acknowledge, accept, and your feelings and everything you've been through. You get angry, whatever it is, it's important. But it's very unhealthy to get stuck in this mindset of blame, of being the victim for the rest of your life. Many people don't want to move through the victim stage. It may upset some people because people have had things done to them that is unacceptable, for sure. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is for you. This is not about the other person. It's not about condoning bad behavior. It's about you moving through and enjoying your life. You cannot have a fulfilling life when you're stuck in victim. Next to impossible to live your best life, feel content and fulfilled within yourself when you are blaming the external world for your life. It is your responsibility now to move through and do the healing so you can enjoy your life. If you've got a psychologist or a coach or someone who's just continuing to make your story stronger and stronger of that they're the bad guy and you're the victim, you've got a long road ahead, victimhood, and that's not going to lead you anywhere that's too fulfilling. So just a thought, guys.
Love what he said there. And let me pull back to my screen here. Where am I going? Okay. Love what Aaron said there. Shout out to Aaron. And he said a lot there. And so, but the things that really stood out to me, though, was, like he said, stop being a victim. Stop wearing the victimhood label. Stop wearing your past, is basically what he's saying. That's my first whole cold hard truth today is the longer you wear your past, the longer you'll be suffering. Point blank, period. And again, I'm sorry if something happened to you, when you were younger, and I'm not excusing that. He's not excusing that. Like he said, a lot of times that is true. Things happen to us sometimes that people did things to us that kind of, really contributed to, our anxieties and how we are today, why we suffer a lot. Some of the trauma we still are re-experiencing today in our lives, right? I get that. And like he said, he gets that. And we're not excusing that. But if you really want to move forward with your life and heal, if you want to be free, you have to decide to break the chain off of you. I can't do it for you. Aaron can't do it for you. You have to decide. Now, that's why him and I do this. That's why Aaron does what he does. The anxiety guy, Dennis, does what he does. We're out here to help you. People of experience are waiting to help you break those chains, and we'll help, walk you through what's helped us, right? That's why we do what we do. But That's what helped me. But I had to decide that I wasn't going to wear my past anymore. You know, um, when I left school at 15 years old abruptly because of what happened to me, I explained that story many times. I was very angry at the time. I had a bad experience with football. I was very angry at a coach at a time. At that time, I was kind of angry at everybody at that place. When I left, I was very bitter. I thought people did me wrong. I was very emotional. My parents were very emotional. It was a hard time for our family. It was rough for them too to see me go through what I was going through because it kind of was a shock. Um, and it was a shock to me too because there was times where I was just like, "Why is this happening in my life? What? How did I get to this point?" And so I left school and started homeschooling. So I was at home, in the house for 3 months. My whole life changed just like that. And for years, I was pissed off. I was angry. I'd always think of ways I could seek vengeance on people. That's how I was. I was just in a very angry, frustrated. It was their fault. People did me wrong. Yada yada yada. And they need to help me get out of this. Or it's their fault. They need to pay. Or uh, they're bad people. I'll go around and tell people, yeah, they're this and that. And it was all a lie. And you know how I found out it was a lie? Number one was when I decided when I was 19 years old, I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not wearing my past anymore. And I slowly allowed myself to start thinking a different mindset, allowing myself to just be open. Not saying I accepted it. It took me time to accept and to realize what the truth was. But the first thing I did was I said, you know what? I'm not going to wear my past anymore. I'm in the present now. What can I do now? And I started to open my mind up to different things, different perspectives about what happened to me. And, maybe that person, maybe those coaches, maybe these people, maybe it was all just a misunderstanding. Maybe it was all just, they didn't know how to deal with somebody with at the time with anxiety sufferer, especially a 15-year-old who was going through what he was going through at the time. I just started to broaden my perspective, and I started to be open to more things. And don't get me wrong, there's periods where I still look back at that and in those years up until I was about this last year, really, where I was kind of like, nah, you know what? Forget those people, right? And I'll allow that past event still to still drive me. And I used it for good in a lot of ways. I mean, like when I was 21 years old, it was probably the most physical activity I ever did in my life. Every day was just, I mean, I was riding 15, 20 miles on the bike, coming home, lifting weights, and I go play basketball. I mean, I was on a tear every single day that summer. But a lot of it was fueled out of my, um, I got to a point in my life now. At that point, it was 6 years after all that, where that fuel, I was using that anger and that frustration as fuel, and I was letting it out every day. And it was good. It showed me how capable I was physically in a lot of ways, but it helped me a lot. But by the end of that summer, I was very tired, and I kind of just came to my wit's end. I need to let this out in a healthy way, like vocally, internally, let it out. And that's when I went and seek counsel and went into the Anxiety Guys programs. And then once I started going down the programs and through counseling and opening up to people, then I really started to see the truth for what it was. And forgiveness became more of a thing in my life with those people in my past because I drew close to the Lord, number one, through all this. My spiritual life took off to a place it had never been. But also, I realized that in order for me to move on, I had to let go of the anger. I had to let it go. And I had to realize that, you know what? People make mistakes. People misunderstand people sometimes. And also sometimes, as shitty as it can be, somebody may hurt you in a wrong way. But I don't know what they were going through at the time, or what their past was. Doesn't excuse what they did. But again, you have to move on, right? I had to accept that, and I had to say, you know what? I had to give grace to people. There's a lot of times where I needed it, so who am I to not give it to somebody else? And so going through the programs, and the more I grew, and when I started this podcast, that really helped me broaden out more, and really broaden that perspective more, and really open up my life to a place I've never been. And and so through all that, the last 2 years now, 3 days ago, Tuesday was 2-year anniversary of this opening the show. So I appreciate all you guys for your support. But here I am 2 years later, and those people the coach I was mad at in the past, be honest with you, I sometimes hated when I thought about him. Guess what? Him and I are fine. And I reached out to them. I just, I got to a point where I finally reached out to those people from my past and told them how I felt. But I also told them I forgave them, and I also gave them my perspective now of, hey, you know what? I think it was just a misunderstanding, and you know, I think we were all going through stuff in the wrong environment at that time. It's basically what I told them, and which is pretty true. But um, and I think a lot of us, I had more common with those people than I thought. They were outsiders new into that environment like me, and it was a great responses in return. Everything was fine, and I even got an apology from that person, that coach as well. And he broke down too. I'm not gonna say his name, but he even said too, I learned a lot from that experience and how I could be better as a coach. And he's now a head coach doing great things, and um, it completely just healed that part of me forever. And it was like God showed me, see how you're not, see what happens when you allow. It's okay to wait. How you allow yourself to really just surrender to Him is what I'm looking. That's what I mean to say. God was basically telling me, see what happens when you surrender to me. You know, yes, we can accept how you feel. It's okay how you feel. It's normal. You were angry. You were upset. But how can we move forward from this? And through all of that, it led me to, you know, through broadening my perspective, through being open to things, through pushing myself, through finding healthy ways to slowly let out that anger and moving on from my past. I came to a point now where I faced the person and, told them how I felt and told them I forgave them. And, and even my family and I even apologized for some of the misunderstandings. We didn't really know what was going on at the time either. And in turn, it was an incredible response I got. But had I never allowed myself to not be bitter, to not let go of that bitterness, or excuse me, if I didn't allow myself to let go of that bitterness and my ego, that's really what it is, your ego and your pride, that's fueling that ego, or your ego and your pride is what's fueling that, you wearing your past identity, right? That hurt and that anger. It's our ego, it's our pride. You have to let go of the ego. You have to let go of your pride sometimes. Christ stood up on a cross with people mocking him and hurting him and doing all those horrible things he went through. And he said, Lord, forgive them. They don't know what they do. They don't know what they're doing. He forgave them anyways. Lord, forgive them. And so who am I? Right? But again, I bring up forgiveness because a lot of times letting go of that past, of our past, is forgiveness. And sometimes it's forgiving ourselves. That's a big one for a lot of people. A lot of times it's forgiving yourself. If you did something that, maybe you regret doing, or maybe you're embarrassed about something you did, and maybe people look at you, sir, I don't know. Or maybe, whatever it is, you know what it is. You have to forgive yourself. Get right with God and get right with yourself. Forgive yourself. Move on. There's people out there that will accept you. Everybody, if you're genuinely repentant or genuinely, realize that you need to move on in your life and realize that maybe you did something wrong. I don't know. I'm not judging you. But as long as you accept and you're willing to let go of that and forgive yourself and move forward in your life, God will take care of the rest. And he'll bring people in your life, someone in your life, opportunities in your life where you can restart, and you can, I don't say restart, but you can just really become the person who you really are. Start becoming that person. And so that's my first point. I wanted to go a little more deeper into that one for a little bit, just because that was a very important one there. So again, the first point is the longer you wear your past, the longer you'll be suffering. And shout out to Aaron. My second point that I'm adding to this 3 is trying to please everyone will only hurt you in the end. Right? People pleasing. A lot of anxiety sufferers out there can really relate with people pleasing. And I know that's something I had to work out of in my journey. Trying to please other people, trying to be accepted, be liked. And it's very, 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 I don't know, it's almost like an epidemic in a way in our world nowadays because of social media. Everyone's trying to be a people pleaser in a way. And a lot of it's the dopamine effect. Everyone's trying to get a dopamine high. It's our addiction now. It's everyone's addiction now through social media. Society's addiction is trying to please other people, trying to be liked and accepted by other people. But again, going back to my first point about wearing your past, it's really no different. You're just trying to, if you're just constantly trying to please other people, it's only going to hurt you because you're not helping yourself. You're not satisfying yourself. You're not doing things that you really most likely really don't enjoy. A lot of times people who try to please other people, you're going to be let down because people are imperfect. You can't rely on people uh, to dictate. You can't allow the outside world and people to dictate how you constantly feel, and are you high, are you low, are you up, are you down, am I happy or am I sad? You have to control that. You have to take control of that. You decide. It's like I said, you decide you let go of your past. You decide how you really want to respond and how you want to live your life to day, each and every day. Trying to please other people will only hurt you, because the more you try to please people, it's never going to be enough. The goalpost always moves. It's like society. 3 years ago was this trend. Last year was this trend. This year it's a new trend. The world's always changing and evolving. It's very flawed because we're imperfect people. There's only one constant, and that's God. And so, am I trying to please man, or am I trying to please God? Because if you're trying to please God, through that, you'll start to find what really makes you happy, what really makes you whole, which will ultimately help you heal. And the more you start to heal, the further away you get from you're starting to heal your anxiety. Now you're starting to open. Now you're heading more towards that freedom you're looking for. That's what I'm looking to say. Sometimes I'm talking. I'm thinking one thing, thinking another thing. But again, the more you start to lean into that healing, the more you'll be free and turn the corner for good. But again, trying to please everyone will only hurt you in the end. It only hurt you. And I know that from my past, and it kind of goes to my third point. It goes together. Stop trying to mimic the outside world, influencers, celebrities, and people who are on the same journey as you. That's my third point. Stop trying to mimic the outside world, influencers, celebrities, so forth, and people who aren't on the same journey as you. Now, what do I mean by that? I see a lot of people nowadays, going back to when I opened up my show today, how I said there's a lot of people online, especially people that put their anxiety online or put their whatever online, their past, their labels, they label themselves, their victimhood, and it's because they see other people doing it, and they see they see the response other people get for being a victim nowadays. Our society celebrates victimhood. Our society celebrates people who are suffering. Our society celebrates kind of pretty much losing. We celebrate the opposite nowadays of what we should be celebrating and or promoting, rather. We shouldn't be trying to again, it goes with my second point. It's trying to please everyone, basically. Oftentimes when you try to please everyone, you become somebody you're not, and you start trying to mimic the people you see online, the celebrities you follow, or people who are on the same journey as you. Now, what do I mean by that point? People who are on the same journey as you. Oftentimes we try to I see a lot of people with anxiety. They try to follow people and be like certain people. They try to mimic other people's lives who aren't on the same path as them. So maybe aren't on the same path as them spiritually, aren't on the same path as them in general. My life, your life doesn't relate to some people who live in, maybe have more money or live a certain lifestyle. Or oftentimes, another thing our society is, we promote the lifestyles we really shouldn't be envying, or really shouldn't be trying to follow or mimic. Right? There's a lot of these sinful lifestyles nowadays, and we're all sinners. I'm not judging anybody, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of these different lifestyles and things that are promoted online nowadays that people start to think it's okay because society's made it okay. The more we see it, the more we constantly see it and look at it, the more we think it's acceptable. And we think it's okay. But a lot of times it's not. A lot of things that we're promoting nowadays in our society not healthy for us. It's not good for us in the long run. And it just brings you down in the end. A lot of it's just satanic, to be honest with you. That's what it is. And so, and that's spiritually speaking, in my opinion. But trying to mimic the outside world, trying to mimic influencers and celebrities and people who are on the same journey as you, people who don't really know you, you don't really know them. I'm not saying it's good to have role models. I'm not saying don't have role models. But I'm saying a lot of people nowadays will go out and do things just because everyone else is doing it. Or it's the hip and trendy thing to do. And some of that stuff's not bad. I'm not saying everything online's bad. But a lot of what we see nowadays, just how does it help you in your journey? Because that's the whole point of this whole video today, is going back to what Aaron said. Your journey. It's your journey. It's God's will for you. Are you focused on yourself and helping yourself and moving forward your life for your journey? Because a lot of people stay stuck, and they stay stuck in the mud because they're so worried about all these other things. We place such a high value on things that really aren't that important in life. We place a low value on the things that really are important in our life and our reality in our life. And a lot of times it leads to bad decision making as well. I see this a lot nowadays too. People chasing the wrong things and make poor decisions, and it puts themselves in a deeper hole. Mental health problems as well. And so, again, in my opinion, I think a lot of what we're seeing nowadays is a lot of people who are trying to build this false persona because maybe they were rejected by the world. Maybe they had something traumatic happen to them in their past. Maybe they felt rejected by people, right? Maybe they felt let down by people. Maybe something happened to you. Oftentimes when we stay in that victimhood state, like we've been saying today, it leads to a false persona. We start to act out in a way that we think the world will accept us. But then when that person who we try to create, we think the world's going to accept this false persona, when that person gets rejected, now we're in a deeper hole. Now we got a real problem here. And this is where people really go south, if you know what I mean. So, again, that's my thoughts on the Aaron Cartwright video, but also that's my 3 cold hard truths for today for an anxiety sufferer out there. So number 1, let me go through them again. Number 1, the longer you wear your past, the longer you'll be suffering. Number 2, trying to please everyone will only hurt you in the end. Number 3, stop trying to mimic the outside world, influencers, celebrities, and people who are on the same journey as you. And I think all 3 of them really go together. It starts with your past, something that hurt you, and you decide where you go now moving forward. But oftentimes, if you allow that to keep wearing your past, you'll become a people pleaser. You'll start trying to please everyone, which goes to the second point. And the more you try to please people, you're easily led. You're a follower. You become a follower. You try to mimic the outside world of influential celebrities and people who aren't maybe healthy for you to follow or mimic. You know what I mean? We start to become somebody we're not. And then when that person gets rejected, to what point I just made, now we're in a deeper hole. And it's just a never-ending cycle. And so those are my 3 cold hard truths. That's my take on all this today. Shout out to Aaron again, Cartwright, for the video. Great video, great little message there, Aaron. I'm going to play that video by Aaron one more time, actually. I think we can hear it one more time, and then I'm going to go to break. And then when I come back, I'm going to hit on Kevin Stefanski, and we'll wrap it up. So here's Aaron Cartwright one more time, giving a great message.
And then blaming someone else, and that's it. So many people think this did that. What's wrong with me? They go to a psychologist. They find out what's wrong. The psychologist, not always, but a lot of the times, will validate their story. And then what happens is the person in the office, psychologist's office, starts to reinforce the story that their mum or their dad or their brother or their uncle or whatever is the bad guy. And that might be true, right? That may be true. I'm not taking this away. In fact, it's more true than not in many cases. But that's not healing. Healing is making whole. Healing is being healthy with whatever's happened. And you need to move through that. It's important to acknowledge, accept, and your feelings and everything you've been through. You know, you get angry, whatever it is, it's important. But it's very unhealthy to get stuck in this mindset of blame, of being the victim for the rest of your life. Many people don't want to move through the victim stage. May upset some people because people have had things done to them that is unacceptable, for sure. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is for you. This is not about the other person. It's not about condoning bad behavior. It's about you moving through and enjoying your life. You cannot have a fulfilling life when you're stuck in victim. Next to impossible to live your best life, feel content and fulfilled within yourself when you are blaming the external world for your life. It is your responsibility now to move through and do the healing so you can enjoy your life. If you've got a psychologist or a coach or someone who's just continuing to make your story stronger and stronger of that they're the bad guy and you're the victim, you've got a long road ahead, victimhood, and that's not going to lead you in anywhere that's too fulfilling. So just a thought, guys.
Again, great video by Aaron. Hope you guys like that today. The message that he gave and I gave hopefully helped you in some way. I'm gonna go to break real quick, and if I repeated myself today, that's a good thing. It means I'm trying to make a point. But I'm gonna go to break real quick. When I come back, I'm gonna hit on Kevin Stefanski, and Kevin Stefanski talks about end game adjustments, and he says something that really stood out to me. So I'll be back in a minute.
You know, because people put labels on you, you know, sometimes people believe them. You know, after a lot of, you know, constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you know, "You'll never do this, you'll never be like that," whatever. Sometimes
I think this is important. I wrote this down right here because this is key for people our age, especially somebody like me who's 23, single. Is not to don't wear the labels the world might say you are. And you know, so people could tell me in my life, you know, some of the things I in my personal life, obviously because we're good friends, but certain things maybe I haven't achieved yet because of what happened to me, just you know, because of circumstances. But if I were to keep wearing that label of I don't have X, Y, and Z yet, or you know, if I would go by the world standards and the pressure, and sometimes even your own family, and you know, he even said in the sermon earlier, he said sometimes the wisest thing for you to do, nobody will agree with you. Literally nobody. And that could be your own, it could be everybody around you. But as long as you listen to the voice and you can feel that conviction, why should you be afraid? Why not? What's there to be, you know what I mean? That should give you somewhat of a confidence. And that's hard to do because when everybody around you is telling you what to do, you can start to wear the, like I could have started to wear those labels and started to, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, though. I can tell you that I'd be in a deep, deep hole. So I guess kind of what we talked about this in our last episode we did too. Back I think it was like in October.
Yeah.
About being bold and courageous, and because that's really what it is. I think surrendering it takes a leap of courage, of faith, and so I guess kind of what are the things that have helped you in your past, or what some words of encouragement people out there, especially our age, watching about, you know. Being bold and courageous and not wearing your past, not wearing the labels and all
that. It's something that's, you know, it's easier said than done, but you definitely have to try to surrender. Surrender it all to God. Giving it to Him, laying at the foot of the cross, and just trusting Him through it all. You know, because people put labels on you, you know, sometimes people believe them. You know, after a lot of, you know, constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you know, "You'll never do this, you'll never be like that," whatever. Sometimes you believe them, you know, after hearing it enough, and then at the end of the day, it's just lies. But you have to trust that, you know, Christ is going to set you free, as He said He will. You just got to take the first step and surrender it to Him first before He takes it, because He's not going to do it forcefully. He's going to do it. He wants you to take the first leap of faith.
All right, welcome back. Time to move on to Kevin Stefanski and the Browns. So today, Kevin Stefanski, or yesterday rather, came out today. Kevin Stefanski was on Deshaun Watson's podcast, Lockerverse. and you can see your live special guest. What's it say? Live special guest, head coach Kevin Stefanski. And so Kevin was on the episode. It was a great episode, great interview by Deshaun and Quincy Avery, his quarterback coach. I thought I like Kevin Stefanski a lot. Kevin's a really cool guy. I think Kevin overall has done a pretty good job. I know times on this show, people criticize me on the show, don't like him as much as a head coach. I think Kevin's a really good head coach, but I like Kevin more if he was more of a CEO coach. And what I mean by that is, and I've said this before in the show, and Kevin gets into it today, and it almost validates my point of why I think Ken Dorsey should be the play caller, why Kevin Stefanski should take a step back, be more of the CEO approach, which I think he'll be great at, which I think he is really good at. I think sometimes in terms of some of the Browns' losses in the playoffs, a lot of their tough losses, or what I think this team needs to do to really take the next step to elevate moving forward, I don't like my head coach really being the play caller a whole lot. It's like, and I've done this before on my show. I think it was episode 131. I broke it down. And I broke down, too, if you look at the history of football, especially in the last 25 years, there's not many coaches who have won a Super Bowl as the play caller. It was Sean McVay, Andy Reid, and that was better. And I broke it down, too. When Sean McVay won his, I think I have Frank Reich won it as well, one time. But when the Rams won the Super Bowl with McVay as the coordinator, they gave up pretty much their whole franchise and bought the championship. Let's just be honest. The Rams really traded everything, went on, got Odell in the middle of the season, went $9 million over the cap, and they got Matt Stafford, basically at the end of his prime. Now he's still playing prime ball now, but coming out of Detroit, it was the perfect scenario for 1 year. And they had to look how much they had to give up for 1 year to win a Super Bowl. And then with Andy Reid started coaching at the age of 40 in 1997. He didn't win his first Super Bowl till 2019. And so, that's 22 years. He didn't win a Super Bowl as a play caller and head coach. And so it's very rare. And I think a lot of times, and I remember I even pointed out on my show at 131. I'm going to go back to some of those points here in a minute after I played the clip from Stefanski, but I think what's best for the Browns moving forward is Ken Dorsey running the new offense, the more advanced offense they're going to be running with him as the play caller, because, like I said in the past, it's for better in the game. It's better in the middle of the game as the adjustments in the game. Because like these guys say here, which I said on the show in the past, I prefer the guy who's calling the plays to sit with my quarterback when the quarterback's out on the sideline. They're going over the in-game adjustments, what happened on the previous drive, looking at the film on the tablet. I think that's better for this team right now where Deshaun is in his career, coming off of the 2-year layoff, getting suspended 12 games, getting injured last year. I think Deshaun needs all the support he can get. And for the play call as well, I think we'll finally get a full season hopefully together this year with the new offense, with all this newness, I think, and trying to understand each other more. I think that's what's best for the Browns right now. And I think that's also the more higher proven success rate among football in college and pro and high school. Hell, even in middle school I've seen it. So that's my opinion. But Deshaun Watson here is going to ask Kevin Stefanski a question about in-game adjustments. And again, I find what Kevin said kind of validates that point I was making of why I think Ken Dorsey should be the play caller. Here's Coach Kev.
Most definitely. I think also too, a big, I guess, question out there too is like people don't understand how fast, especially adjustments happen throughout the game, but really halftime. So you come in, you play your first half, you come in, you probably have, they say 10 minutes, it's probably 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, what is your process going through at halftime to try to make adjustments to get ready for the second half?
Yeah, it's insane. Honestly, I'll never forget my first halftime of my first preseason game as a young coach with the Vikings. It was like, all right, I thought it was college where the band's playing on the field and you got all this time. And it was like 2 minutes. You got the referees are banging on the door. You guys got to come out. I'm like, are you kidding me? So to Deshaun's point, like that halftime, if you're waiting till halftime to make an adjustment, you're in trouble. So those adjustments are happening really in a series, in between the series. Halftime, what we try to do is have a lot of conversation on the headset the last, call it 5 minutes, preparing ourselves for that halftime.
Right.
So we're talking, okay, hey, what are the first 3 passes? What are the first 3 runs we want to get to? What's the pressure that they brought in this first half that they're probably going to bring again, so we can coach the guys up on how we're going to pick it up. So once we get in there, we huddle up super fast, hit those things, and then we're in front of the players right away. And we bring in a whiteboard. We put up the plays, we project the plays on the board, like, hey, here's what you can expect for the next plays to happen. But I guess my big point is those adjustments better be happening throughout the game. They're happening sometimes in the series, like, hey, Deshaun, you're telling Deshaun, hey, tell the left tackle to be ready for it. And hey, they just brought that pressure. They're probably going to bring it again. Remember, he's got to go all the way out to the nickel. Like, those are type of things that are happening both in series, in between the quarters, and obviously at halftime as well.
All right, so that's Kevin Stefanski giving his take on adjustments and what really goes on. He really breaks it down beautifully there, what really happens in the NFL. And he's right. And Deshaun was right. You don't really have a lot of time at halftime. It's like Peyton Manning said that one time, what really is halftime adjustments? There are halftime adjustments, but a lot of time you don't have much time. You're just walking in. What did Peyton Manning say? You're walking in, take a piss, eat an orange, and all right, let's head back out there. But I guess when you're Peyton Manning, that's what happens, because he pretty much ran the whole offense. So, but I love what Kevin said there, how he broke it down. But in my opinion, I think it kind of validates why I think Ken Dorsey should be the play caller, and why I think Kevin Stefanski should be more the CEO head coach, because he pretty much told you those adjustments are happening in the game, right? But I think a lot of why we're seeing football, the game in general nowadays, especially at the pro level, because there's so many pro coaches nowadays who are the coordinators and the head coach. And it's just not really working out a whole lot, in my opinion. I think we have, the coaching shuffle every year is insane nowadays. I think coaching is at an all-time low in the NFL and football across the board. I think the game and product itself is at the all-time low. People may not agree with that, but I'm just saying, you go to a Coach JB show, he breaks it down. Former coach Matt McChesney, former pro, all these guys that have been in the NFL, everyone says it, and we see it. It's the worst it's ever been. And so, but again, I think a lot of that is because of the structure nowadays, how we align our coaches, the play caller and the head coach. There's just so much. I don't think people really understand how much is on a head coach's plate. And going back to episode 131, what I said there, and I have some of those same points here. When I reached out to a former college coach who won 3 national championships, and I asked him about this, and he said, some of the points he pointed out to me, you don't want your play caller to feel the emotions of the game. He needs to be a chess player. Well, your head coach is usually your most emotional coach out there, because he's the head coach. He's the guy that's in charge of getting the troops riled up, leading them out there, talking to the referees on a shitty call. This penalty, why is this not happening? There's a lot of things, a lot of emotions that a coach goes through. Doesn't mean a coach is always like, Stefanski's not emotional, doesn't show a lot of emotion. He showed more last year. But your head coach usually is more into the game with the entire team. He's involved for getting the team going. He's the guy that gives the speech for the team runs out for a reason. He's the head coach. There's more emotion there. When you're play caller, that's why a lot of times a lot of play callers sit in the box, because they want to be in a quiet room where they're away from the game. They don't want to have the noise. They don't want anything to affect their thinking. And that's the whole point. A lot of times our emotions, going back to some of my anxiety points I gave in my last 2 episodes, our emotions can affect our logic. And I think it's better for your play caller to not have that. You don't want your play caller to be very emotional. He's a chess player. He needs to be a killer. He needs to be locked in, laser focused. And momentum has to be calculated. He has to be very calculated and everything else. But to be calculated, you have to think. And you have to be able to be laser focused and locked in. And those are some of the points. He also brought it to me too, how the head coach, he deals with everything throughout the week. Throughout the week, he's pulled in 20 different meetings. He's the head coach of the team. He's the CEO of the team. It's his team. It's his building. He's getting pulled in so many directions throughout the week. There's sometimes he's not sitting there at certain points of the game planning with the offense. And, usually the play caller usually is there all the time. Don't you want your play caller in every single meeting with the offensive play calling? But again, he's the head coach. He has to, get pulled in different directions because he's the head coach of the team. There's many other things he has to manage on the defensive side of the ball as well. He's got to see what's going on. He's got to know everything that's going on. And also, pushback on a head coach is good. And what I mean by that is it's okay to have another opinion in the offense, your offensive coordinator, to maybe push back on the head coach, and kind of be like, hey, and this is what this coach told me as well. And he saw this firsthand with Urban Meyer. Hey, it's okay. You know, coach may say, hey, let's run this, but the coordinator may say, no, I want to run this instead because this is what we saw. I mean, it's good to have healthy. It's not like they're yelling at each other on the sideline, but a lot of times if a head coach trusts his play caller, he'll say, okay, run it then. And a lot of times it works because the offensive coordinator knows more. He's in lockstep with that quarterback, with that offensive side of the ball, more than anybody at any other coach. It's his unit. And so, but again, I think when you're a head coach and you're trying to manage all 53 guys, it's very hard to fully lock in as much as you can on that offensive side of the ball rather than just having one guy that can do it. And he's your play caller, which is what Ken Dorsey probably is. It should be. And so, that's my opinion, but I think Kevin really kind of solidified to me why I think, he really, when he shared what really goes on in the halftime adjustments and how really you don't have a lot of time. A lot of those adjustments were made during the game. That's why I think Ken Dorsey should be the play caller. And I think Kevin Stefanski is a great coach. I think he's done a nice job as a play caller. At times, I think if you look at Kevin Stefanski as a play caller going back to Minnesota, just as a play caller, that's how he got his job here. He was a great play caller in Minnesota. That offense in Minnesota was really good. But when you're a head coach and a play caller, I don't think that's not for everybody. And I just think you go back to the Houston game, the loss, and we could just say, oh, it was just a bad day. You look at a lot of their losses though in the last 4 years at times. There was just moments where it was just a scratchy head play calling. They didn't really adjust during the game. There was, the Houston game to me, they just didn't look prepared. I think what's best, like I said, going back to my original point, what's best for Deshaun, coming out of all he's been through, is to have a person as they play caller, but also will sit with him on the sideline. It's better communication. You know what I mean? It's more of a different relationship with your play caller when he's your offensive coordinator, in my opinion. When your head coach is the play caller, he can only come over and talk to you on the sideline for a couple minutes, and he's got to head back out there to the sideline because he's the head coach. You're still on defense. Like there's two sides of the ball. He doesn't just, he's not just walking away and I get Jim Schwartz can handle it. He's a former head coach, but your head coach still needs to be there. He needs to know what's going on always. And he has to get the feel of the entire game from start to finish. So that's my opinion, and we'll see what happens. I think Ken Dorsey will be the play caller, and you know what? Shout out to Kevin Stefanski. I think what I like about Kevin Stefanski, and today was not a criticism of Kevin Stefanski or a tear down of Kevin Stefanski. I've done some of these videos in the past, and sometimes, people leave comments thinking, "Oh my gosh, you're killing Stefanski! How dare you?" This one guy told me to shake my head. Yeah, clearly he didn't watch the video, so he needs to shake his head for not watching. But, no, I'm just playing. I love everybody, but, I'm just, but I think Kevin's a pretty good coach. I think he's done a nice job. I think he's actually a really good CEO. The players like him. But again, I think what's best for the team and what works the most, in my opinion, in sport of football, is my head coach being more of that CEO and you have a guy in Ken Dorsey now who has experience as a play caller, has had success with Cam Newton, and when Cam Newton was an MVP of the league and went to the Super Bowl, I think he'll do really well with Deshaun. Deshaun, by his comments publicly, really likes Ken Dorsey. I think it's what's best for the team, best for the offense, and will ultimately help them go as far as they want to go in terms of winning a Super Bowl, most probably winning the division first, hosting a home playoff game, and making a run for the Super Bowl. So that's my opinion. So shout out to Kevin Stefanski there, shout out to Lockerverse, shout out to Deshaun and Quincy Avery, great interview there. A shout out to Deshaun too for the opening of the restaurant up there in Cleveland Heights, giving back to the community. Deshaun does a lot of stuff for the community people don't see. I know some people hate him because of stuff in the past. People never like him, and that's okay. That's people's opinion. That's people's choice. I'm not trying to make anybody change or anything like that. I don't really care. But I just want to say kudos to him though for giving back to the community. He does a lot of community work. Kevin Stefanski does as well. And like Garrett Bush on the All the Cleveland Sports Show and the Barbershop. Shout out to G. Bush, one of my favorite local sports personalities and commentators to watch. He was there yesterday, and he said on the show today, he goes, "Man, you wouldn't believe how many people came up to me yesterday at the event, and we're like, we're here just because we love Deshaun." So, and I think that's something that gets lost in the public, in the national landscape. People outside of Cleveland think that everyone in Cleveland just doesn't really like Deshaun, but I don't think that's true. A lot of people really do support him and really do support the team. Obviously, I don't know if anybody supports the team more than Cleveland fans, but Deshaun's definitely got a lot of support behind him. People still believe in him and want him to succeed, obviously, and want it to happen here. So, but cool event yesterday, cool episode with those three, and yeah, that's my take on that. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today. Love all you guys. Like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. And please leave a comment below today's video, and let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.